I think there's a lot of like, kind of like, again, with raw milk, a lot of fear mongering, a lot of, oh, it's possible that you could get like listeria from deli meat or things like that. And again, you kind of just have to look at the numbers and where it's coming from and just do your due diligence and be aware of what's important for you and just make good choices based on your experiences and your family and your values.
My name is Lisa, mother of 8 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. Join me as I share with you my love for creating a handmade home from scratch cooking and a little mom and entrepreneur life along the way. Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. I have been requested so many times to bring on Meg from the Howler Homestead to chat about their story of moving from California all the way across the country to buy a property totally debt-free and to cash flow their renovations and build their homestead from scratch. Also, pregnancy and health during pregnancy, controversial things like raw milk and ultrasounds. So we're going to chat about all of that. Right, Meg, I'm looking forward to chatting with you, not only about pregnancy, because I know you're currently pregnant and the things you avoid, the things maybe you do to take care of yourself. But I also am intrigued by your story. I was watching on all your vlogs, trying to catch up because I've been following with you guys for a while, but with what's currently going on. So tell us a bit about yourself and your story and your family, and then we can talk about pregnancy as well.
Okay, so it depends on where we start. We are currently
like
homesteading
the broad
in
overview.
North Carolina. Yeah, broad overview. Okay. Long story short, my husband and I made an epic change and we went from suburban California life to now we are homesteading on 7 acres in North Carolina.
Yeah.
A big part of that decision was because our marriage was not in a good place and my husband was working like every hour that God created and we needed a huge change. And we kind of got down to the point where we were like, well, our marriage is not in a good way. We're either going to split up or we're going to do something ridiculous. And apparently our choice was to do something ridiculous. So we packed all of our family into a travel trailer, right? And traveled the country for 10 months, found North Carolina, and we were like, this is it. We're staying here. We love it. And that's what we've been doing since.
Yeah. And I know also I heard on your story that you were looking for debt freedom and you're doing all of this on a cash basis. So you found a property. It has some structures that need lots of renovation. I know you've already been doing that for the last 4 years or so, but you're doing this with the money that you have, which I think is admirable and also kind of the American dream, right? So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how's that going?
So, I guess I should clarify, we do have a job. We do YouTube full time. So we're not just like living on some giant nest egg somewhere, but
well, yes, I meant with the money you're making and not debt, because yes, we all have jobs.
Yeah. That's definitely very, very important to us. We spent a couple years paying off as much debt as we could in California. Like we had cars and we had some credit cards and stuff like that. And so we spent a lot of time paying all that off. And then we started attacking our mortgage. And having that paid down quite a bit, and then selling in a seller's market was really great. So we had that to live off of while we were traveling. And we used the rest of that, what was left, to buy our place, which was not much left. But we found a trashy, terrible property. And we bought it with cash. That was very, very important to us because we didn't want my husband to have to go back to work immediately. So being able to do something without payments was a huge goal. So we were willing to buy like the trashy, rundown property in order to make that happen. And so we just cash flow everything. And I mean, some months are better than others and it just depends on the season or what project we're doing. But we do either we'll be saving up for a really large project or, if it's like garden season, then we just go pay cash for trellises and things like that. But it's been very, very important to us to stay debt free so that we have a lot of freedom in our time and the decisions we can make as far as making money goes.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did as well. So I think you guys started YouTube, about 4 years? Or did you start around the time you got your property or did you start before that?
We started before. We started the year before we left California. So it's been actually like 7 years now.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's about the same kind of path we took. We worked on paying down to where we didn't have any mortgage and we could buy our property with cash. We also have a 7-acre property. And the same reason that you said you did it is we found that whenever we lived that way, even if it meant like buying things that weren't necessarily that great, like you said, you bought sort of like a rundown property. We've done similar things with, our vehicles, and our property needed a lot of work as well. But the ultimate reason was just the freedom, because you don't have to make any certain amount of money whenever you're debt free. You can, try things. They might fail. You can try a business like YouTube, but the stakes just aren't that high whenever all of that money can just go into sustaining your family and not debt payments. So that was our like exact story. And I've found so much freedom in it as well. And we've been kind of living like parallel lives here, it sounds like, which is
it does.
Really so fun. Yeah.
It is great. I wouldn't change it.
Same. So you are currently pregnant with, is this your 5th child? Sorry, remind me if that's wrong.
6. This is number 6.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So you're just like me also. You have a lot of babies and you've done this whole pregnancy thing a lot. So I'm sure that you've learned a lot throughout all of your pregnancies. One of the first questions we had on here, so let's just get right into the controversial stuff right away, raw milk. So I know that no matter what we say about this, let's put the disclaimer out, our own experiences. So you can do whatever you want to do. That's totally fine. This is America. But what has been your experience throughout your pregnancies? I'm just like jumping like right out of the gate, assuming you're cool with raw milk, but I guess I don't need to assume anything. Have you always been cool with raw milk, or are you not at all?
I am totally cool with raw milk. It wasn't always that way because I kind of grew up with like standard, nutritional education, I guess we could call it.
Correct. Yes.
But yeah, I'm totally cool with raw milk. And actually, interestingly enough, I kind of need raw milk during my pregnancy, not necessarily for the nutrition, but I get such bad heartburn, awful heartburn. And it's kind of the only thing that touches it. So I chugged raw milk like crazy with our last baby. And I've been drinking a bunch of raw milk this time because I'm like, I just have to survive. And it's the only thing that deals with my heartburn. But yeah, I am totally an advocate for raw milk. I think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, I'm in that same camp. And I've been in that camp since my 2nd pregnancy. So my first child, I didn't really know about raw milk. I didn't know like about anything, I don't know if I drank any milk during that pregnancy. I don't remember. But by the 2nd child, I had learned about it. And I was into it. And so I have 7 pregnancies under my belt where raw milk has been a staple. It's been very important to my pregnancy. And like you, I feel like it's something that I even bulk up on during pregnancy. Like I'm trying to get more in when I'm pregnant than when I'm not. So for me, it's like foundational. But, I know for a lot of people, there's fear surrounding that. And people say like this comment that was the original listener question that inspired this episode said that there's a ton of confusing info surrounding raw milk. And that's just it. If you Google it, it is going to come back that you should not consume it during pregnancy. Has that been your experience as well?
Yes. And especially I feel like in the last couple of years, the internet is really censoring a lot of stuff. So it's hard to find any information that's not the typical mainstream information. And yeah, it's definitely very, very hard for that. I learned a lot through Nourishing Traditions and Weston A. Price. I kind of came onto the raw milk bandwagon it was probably about baby number 4, actually. And it's harder to get it out in California just because of the rules and regulations out there. But yeah, that was about the time that I was.
And it's expensive.
It was like $20 a gallon and it was not sustainable for us. And I'm not a huge milk drinker anyways. So I was like, okay, I mean, that's all right. But I definitely see the benefits and I agree with it. And I think everybody should be able to make their own decision. And I am one of those people that the closer it is to the way God made it, the better. So if it comes out of the cow, not pasteurized, it's probably better for you that way.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's lots of information out there if you know where to look on what's in raw milk. And then also, I always encourage people to do is to find studies on like how many deaths there have been from consuming raw milk in, I don't know what the data set should be, 10 years, and then look at how many deaths have happened from pasteurized milk, how many deaths have happened from spinach, strawberries,
Right.
and then make your decision based on that, not what could happen. Just look at what happened, like what has actually happened. Have there been any large scale studies? And look into some of that information. That's usually where I tell people to start.
Yeah, that's usually where I start as well. That's always a really good indication. And use a lot of times you see numbers that you didn't expect going, the opposite of what the conventional wisdom says.
I will say that. Yes. You're probably, well, and this is with so many things in life too. There's things you hear, and inevitably, I promise you, there will be a comment on this episode that will say, I know such and such who died from drinking raw milk. And that's what you call anecdotal. You have to look at the big picture when it comes to everything, because there's never a risk-free choice, no matter what you do. I think we think certain things are risk-free just because they're the traditional or conventional way, but there's a risk on both sides. And so usually you, for your own personal, your own decision-making, you have to weigh out based on real facts and studies, and not something like an anecdote, which is so tempting and easy to do.
Right. This is kind of like a ridiculous scenario as well, but like there are people that have died from skydiving, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die from skydiving. I know that's really broad and ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a good example. If you happen to know the one who did die of skydiving, I completely understand why you're more scared of it, because emotionally I am too. But if you're trying to make a decision and you happen to know the one in whatever thousands of people that die from skydiving, you still need to make your decisions based on the facts, not how you're personally tied to it. And that's how I feel with raw milk. What gets confused a lot of times is we're looking at, maybe like a story we've heard or fear mongering statistics that aren't necessarily true. So yeah,
right.
I think it's a good example.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So is there anything that you do avoid? We also had some questions about fermented foods like kombucha and kefir or kefir, however you want to say that. Are you avoiding anything like that, or what are you doing there?
No, not really. And there was a point like my early pregnancies where I did avoid, like I didn't eat tuna. I wouldn't eat sandwich, like deli meat, things like that. And I actually had a conversation with a friend who's also pregnant right now a while ago. She was like, do you eat deli meat? I'm kind of scared of it. And I was like, actually, yeah, I do, because this is my 6th baby and I want to eat what I want to eat.
Yeah.
And I've never been sick from deli meat. And like being pregnant itself is not the issue with deli meat. Like deli meat has the potential to possibly make anybody sick, just like any other food could potentially make anybody sick if something were to be mishandled or mismanaged. I don't worry about it. I really don't cut out much of anything anymore, aside from caffeine. I do cut out caffeine just because I don't feel like my body does well on it. And I don't feel like that's like, it does cross into the placenta and the baby. And I don't want to load them up with caffeine. And I actually had a full calf coffee on accident this pregnancy, like towards probably about the middle. I went to the coffee shop. I always order decaf, but I completely spaced it. And I had a full calf and the baby was like going crazy. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to do that to you. But that's the only thing that I really cut out. No. Yeah. I think there's a lot of again, with raw milk, a lot of fear mongering, a lot of, it's possible that you could get like listeria from deli meat or things like that. And again, you kind of just have to look at the numbers and where it's coming from and just do your due diligence and be aware of what's important for you and just make good choices based on your experiences and your family and your values.
Yeah, that's really all you can do. On the deli meat subject, I'm with you. I just don't worry about it. So if we're, somewhere and that's the option to eat, I'm just eating the deli meat. But one thing I will say about deli meat is it's not like milk where you're missing something that has so many health benefits. It's kind of just an inconvenience. And that's typically why I just am like, I read the numbers and I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to do it. But at least with that, you're not missing something that has, you know, all of these vitamins and minerals and protein and all of that. So, you know, I guess it's a less consequential choice, if you will, to avoid something like deli meat, or what was the other thing you were saying?
Like tuna.
Oh yeah, tuna. I guess that's a pretty healthy thing. But yeah, I'm with you. By the time that 8th kid rolled around, I'm like, yeah, I don't, or even the 6th or the 5th, I'm like, I've just noticed that I've never gotten sick from this. Something tells me this isn't as big of a deal as, you know, maybe I originally had thought. Also, it adds so much anxiety. All the rules to me, and I haven't looked into them for a while because now I know how to be pregnant. You know, I'm more confident with that whole process. But it just adds to anxiety. My youngest sister, she just had her first baby less than a year ago, and she kept asking me things like, "What about this? What about this?" And I'm like, "Oh, just don't worry." Like, you almost can't mess it up. You know.
My husband and I have talked about this a lot lately, of the idea from mainstream when you're pregnant that you actually are like sick and have a disease, and you don't. Like, your body's just growing a human.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great job at it. So like all these rules, and I mean, some of them are put in place for a reason. Like, there are things that can happen, but for the most part, like, you're just growing a human and your body knows what it's doing. And as long as you're making like decent, right choices, it's not a hard journey. Yeah.
There's some like obvious things like drugs and alcohol, but other than that, I feel like you almost can't, you know, and maybe certain like pharmaceuticals and whatnot. But like just regular food that you give to your toddler, but yet you're afraid you can't eat it. I mean, just, yeah, I'm very laid back about that. Now, what about like the kombucha, the kefir, or fermented foods? Are you doing a lot of that during pregnancy, or do you prioritize those?
It kind of depends, honestly. I've had kind of an aversion to like really acidic or fermented foods this time around. So I just listen to my body in that. And I try not to prioritize a certain ideal over how my body's actually feeling. So like, I'm not going to force myself to eat sauerkraut or kimchi or whatever. If I'm like, I can't even get this down, I'm gagging.
Right.
So it's really dependent on the pregnancy. With our daughter, my last pregnancy, I didn't really have a problem with it. I think that was the one we found like the wild brine fermented sriracha, and I like loved that on everything. And this time, the smell of anything fermented, I'm like, not having it, can't do it, not eating it. So I think it just depends on the pregnancy. And I really do, it was probably number 4 that I really tried to be really in tune with what I was craving and what I absolutely did not want to eat. And I'm not going to force myself to eat anything that I'm not cool with at the time.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I'm totally same. Like, it's, again, like more laid back the more pregnancies you've had, more confidence in how you approach it. Now, some people are asking about livestock. Is there any certain livestock you try to avoid? I know there's something with like when sheep have lambs, like lambing. I'm not familiar with anything else that would be a problem. Or I don't know if you've heard about that.
I haven't heard about the sheep, no. And for the most part, I don't avoid anything, mostly because I figure I'm already been around all these animals pre-pregnancy. So my body's going to be used to any of these things that, you know, microbiota that they're putting out and that kind of thing. And I don't feel, I mean, obviously I'm not rolling around in the pig pen, but I wouldn't do that whether I was pregnant or not. So no, I don't really avoid anything. And even I was talking to my midwife and she was mentioning cats, and do you have cats? And, you know, how you're not supposed to do the litter box and all that. And I said, yes, we have cats, but we've had cats since we got here almost. And she said, if you're already in contact with the cats, then even changing a litter box really isn't a big deal because your body's already used to that microflora that's going on. It was just if you got pregnant and then got a cat, and so you're not used to it.
Yeah.
So no, I really don't avoid any livestock or anything. I mean, I can't stop doing what we're doing.
Right.
Just because I'm pregnant.
Yes. From my understanding, the cat thing and the lambing is the toxoplasmosis. And if you've been exposed in your life before, it's okay. So like I grew up on a farm. barn cats everywhere. We had sandboxes. So I'm sure like I like totally encountered toxoplasmosis before. I still wouldn't like,
most likely.
yeah, I'm sure I did. And I'm sure all my kids have too, because same scenario. One thing, like the only thing I'd say I would think about when I'm pregnant is that, just in case, because I haven't been like confirmed that I've been in contact with it. And then also like the consequences, if you get that during early pregnancy, are pretty big. So like we have cats everywhere, they get in the garden beds and they'll poop in there. And if it's a young cat and they're getting it for the first time and they're outdoors, anyways, it's like such a small chance because all these things have to happen. But like maybe wear gloves when you're gardening. Right. But I totally was milking the cow till the day I had the baby, like going to get the cow, just all the things that I didn't worry about anything except maybe that toxoplasmosis has like fear mongered in my brain. And I think that's scary. But other than that, and also I do want to point out, I don't know anybody who's gotten that. So I think in some ways it's overblown in my brain for sure. And I'm aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously if I'm like digging in my garden and I see a chunk of cat poop, I'm not going to be like playing with it. Right, yeah. Here we go. Let's dig in this. Good. No, I'll avoid it. But yeah, I don't. I think it's kind of like the food thing, like things that have been blown out of proportion. Mm-hmm. Cats have been in existence with pregnant women for like literally thousands of years. I think we're going to be okay for the most part.
Yep. I think you're right. I want to take a quick break to tell you about a sponsor for this podcast that I absolutely have loved for a really long time, for years now. That is Toups & Co., which is a small, family-owned, made in America, natural and organic skincare company. I actually happen to know the owner and founder personally. Well, not personally, but we're in a text group, and she is so sweet and genuine. But more importantly than that, whenever you're considering skincare, is her products are absolutely amazing. They work like the products I used to kind of miss whenever I switched to all natural and organic, where they cover and they make your skin look youthful if you're older, or fully cover if you're younger and you have issues there. Whatever your skin type, I have found that Toups & Co. products work awesome. I love them for cleansing, for my skincare routine, which I've been taking a lot more seriously lately. So they're sea buckthorn cleansing oil, the charcoal bar I use every single day. I love the tonics and the serums, especially the glow serum, because it really does make me glow. I do that at night. And then for my skincare during the day, I usually will use one of their moisturizers, like the tallow balm, which is made from grass-fed tallow. And then for the makeup, my makeup look with Toups & Co., I can't get enough of it. I do their foundation, the blush, I do the eyebrow pencil. If you're watching on the YouTube and not just listening on the podcast apps, you'll see a full face done here in Toups & Co. makeup. I also have the Toups & Co. lip gloss and mascara, and it leaves nothing to be desired as far as quality. But then I also don't have to worry about the ingredients that go into your skin. Your skin is your body's largest organ. If you're going to worry about your food and all of that, it also makes sense to think about what you're going to be putting on your skin, and Toups & Co. solves that problem for me. I no longer am researching how to make my own makeup and all the things that I used to try, because this works so well. Toups & Co. is offering Simple Farmhouse Life listeners 10% off your order. You can use code FARMHOUSE over at Toups & Co. That's TOUPS and co.com. Again, use code FARMHOUSE. Toups like soups, but with a T. I get so many messages from people who say, I love what you were saying on the podcast, but what was it? Was it soup? What was it? So it's Toups like soups with a T. Use that code FARMHOUSE. Thanks again, Toups & Co. for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so taking care of yourself during pregnancy, productivity, a lot of people are saying you seem to have a very full plate and you also seem to get a lot done. How is that working out for you in pregnancy? Do you need more rest? Do you prioritize rest, or are you just energetic all the time?
I'm a fairly energetic person, just to begin with, so that helps. The first month of every pregnancy I've ever had, I practically sleep the entire month. That's always really hard.
Yeah, the first month, all bets are off, right?
Oh my gosh, it's awful. And then like the last few weeks are awful as well. But yeah, first month, you're not going to catch me out of bed and you're like getting quesadillas for dinner, like nothing crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the most difficult time for me. since we've been here, I've been very, very thankful because my husband is home. He's home with us all the time.
Yes, I'm with you. And that's a big help.
So it is such a blessing because he can feed the kids and he can take care of everything. And he knows, like, I'm just going to be passed out on the bed for the most part. And he is such a huge help. And most of my kids are older now as well, so they can pretty much take care of themselves. When all of the boys were being born, they were all 2 years apart and they were all little and it was just me at home. Right. That was more difficult. I had a really hard time with that. Even though I was younger, that was because you can't just go sleep when your toddler's running around the house. No. So that was really hard. But I've kind of managed, I mean, like, take a nap if I can or go to bed earlier. Just try to get more sleep and deal with being exhausted and know that it's not going to be forever. Once that second trimester hits, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just the same thing like you were talking about with the food and all the other things, the livestock. You're just listening to your body. You're not going to beat yourself up if you eat the wrong thing or if you're tired and you have to take a nap. This has become probably somewhat second nature to you at this point, seeing as it's your 6th pregnancy. You kind of know how to handle this. And during certain aspects or certain times of the pregnancy, you just need more rest. And I'm with you on that, especially the first trimester. Like after that, I actually have really easy pregnancies. So I feel like pretty good after about 14 weeks, pretty much all the way until the end, to be honest. But that first trimester, yeah, like you said, quesadillas, scrambled eggs, whatever, just easy stuff for sure.
Yeah. And definitely removing a lot of the pressure from yourself that the same amount of housework does not have to get done. The same amount of schooling does not have to get done. Yeah. Like, it's okay to step back and just be like, I just need to take some extra time to stay awake and keep everybody alive. And it doesn't have to be that same level of like perfection that maybe you're putting on yourself or society is putting on you. Like, it's okay to just take a minute to have a nap.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally true. We had so many audience questions about managing a full plate and how you plan your week, because you do homeschooling, homesteading, homemaking, pregnant. This can be very overwhelming. So do you have a plan? I know you guys, you run your business together, which is YouTube. And so I'm sure your husband's involved in all of this as well. What does your planning look like maybe at the beginning of the week or the month? How does that look for you?
So every Sunday night, I sit down with a notepad and I just write out the things that either absolutely have to get done this week or like I'd like to get done this week. And then I go off our schedule too. During pregnancy, I also like having a full plate. I try to dump stuff off my plate. So it's less commitments. The past couple months, we've actually gone down to 2 videos a week rather than the 3 to 4 we were doing because we have to be realistic about my time.
Yeah, that's a lot. I do one a week.
Yeah. So we usually do daily. We've been doing daily for probably 3 years now. I guess 4 days a week. And that, I mean, I'm the editor. So my husband mostly films everything and I will sometimes film like kitchen segments and then I edit. And it takes me about 4 hours per video.
Not surprised.
And that was just getting to be too much. I was like, I can't do this and be exhausted and try to keep everything going. So we went down to 2.
If you're doing 4 a week, that's a 4-hour workday, 4 days a week, which I use that amount of time to do a lot of other things. That's a lot of time,
Yeah.
I mean, business wise. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a ton of time. So that was part of getting things off my plate is just cutting back a little bit. And that's also part of the beauty of being debt free is we can do that. We have the freedom to do that because that is a paycheck hit, but without having the overhead of a mortgage and car payments and stuff like that, I can take that time to be more present in my pregnancy than freaking out and worrying about having to work all the time.
Yeah. And from I'm just curious from one YouTuber to another, do you find that your views haven't really suffered? Because I used to do 2 videos a week for 5 years, maybe. And then in the last year, I went down to 1. And I feel like my views, people just watch the 1 twice I get twice the views on the 1 as I used to get on the 2. like the added up. So, what I'm saying is my views are the same. Have you found that to be the case?
Yeah, it kind of balances out. Yeah. So I don't know if it's easier for more people to watch less videos because, not everybody has time like every single night to watch a video kind of thing. So it's easier for them to catch up. But yeah, it does seem to balance out a bit.
Yeah.
There might be a little like a small hit initially, but it's not so bad.
Yeah, once they get used to you're only watching one, I find that they end up watching not everybody, but a lot of my subscribers will watch every video as opposed to picking between the two that I did that week. Like, I think they think, okay, I'll catch up on this one, but I can't watch both. So they just pick one. That's kind of been my experience. So I don't know. That's off topic, but I do think that actually doesn't hurt too bad.
Yeah, it does. It's a lot easier too, because now I'm sitting here going, well, why have we been doing 4 videos a week for so long if we can survive on 2?
Right. That's a lot easier. I don't know about you though, but like whenever I started doing 1 video a week, I started packing more things into that 1 video. So whereas like I used to do 2 videos and I'd maybe make a recipe or 2 per video, now I'm making 4 recipes on 1. But anyways, I don't know if you've done that, but I've kind of done that.
Yeah, I seem to be doing that as well because it's less work in the long run because you're doing less days. Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of like, let's just add this in as well.
So what does postpartum look like for you? This isn't your first go round. How much do you take off, whether that's business or homeschool? How do you rest?
So this has changed over the years with all of our different babies and our lifestyle changes and stuff. My last pregnancy, number 5, our daughter was the first one where Ben has been home full time. So that postpartum was it was also our first home birth. All the boys were hospital births. And then he had to go back to work within like 3 days. And this was my home birth. It was the most amazing experience ever. And he was home. So postpartum for me after her was like, I spent probably 4, 5, 6 days pretty much in bed, just snuggling and nursing and resting and letting my body do what it needed to do. Like I said earlier, my kids are older, so they're capable of cooking dinner. My husband can cook dinner and like everything was just so relaxed. And that's what I plan on doing again this time, is just spending probably about a week mostly in bed, letting my body rest the way it needs to. And I did listen to my body a lot with, we call her Buggy. That's her nickname, is Buggy. Everybody knows her as Buggy. Just listening to my body going, okay, can I get out of bed right now? Do I want to get out of bed right now? Do I feel like I can like physically support myself by being up and around? And after a couple days, it was like, yeah, I'm good with this. I feel like, getting up and walking outside and getting around. And if my body had been like, no, you need to spend another day or 2 in bed, I would have been like, okay, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there again, just listening to your body. This isn't your...
Yeah. And you'd asked about schedule and homeschool too.
Homestead, homeschool, all that.
Very minimal homeschool. Very, very minimal homeschool.
Yeah.
I have some workbooks. I throw the workbooks at the kids. They know how many pages to get done a day. Super easy. And I feel like, adding another baby and just how the family dynamic changes is school in itself. I mean, that's a very important life lesson of like adding more people and figuring out how to, be a family of 8 rather than 7. And that's all very important as well. Those are huge life lessons that they're learning that they're not going to get from a book, and math is not going to teach them. So yeah, again, very minimal homeschool. We just kind of survive for a while.
Yeah. Very minimal official homeschool. But like you said, kids learn all the time, whether you are trying to organize that learning or not. And that's something I've learned, that my kids pick up stuff all the time, even if we're not doing like during the school hours. So we have our school time that we do every single day. And then, there's a lot of other hours where they're home, where we're not doing school, but they learn just all the time. It's just basically what kids do. So even if you're putting things in front of them, giving them creative space to play and to try things, it's going to be summer, probably. Like you're having the baby soon, right? So it'll be nice outside.
Yeah, in a couple weeks, probably.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know when this is coming out, but certainly you've had the baby by the time that this comes out.
I would hope so, yes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Someone asks about ultrasounds, and I've touched on this here and there, but it's one of those things that I just, no matter how many bad things I read about ultrasounds, it just really truly does not seem to make that big of a difference ultimately. I don't know what your take is on this, or if you're really strong on like no ultrasound or yes ultrasound. I'm kind of like very whatever about the whole thing, to be honest.
I think that kind of goes back to looking at like numbers, right? And seeing if there's any specific evidence of things going very, very wrong or things turning out badly. I don't know a lot of babies that have been born that have been harmed by ultrasound in the long run. So for me, it's very like, again, you have to make your own decisions and you have to do what's right for yourself. With our daughter, I did not have any ultrasounds, but that was because I was pregnant with her during 2020 and they weren't really available. And I wasn't going to go through all of that
just to get one
stuff with 2020 just to get an ultrasound. And my midwife was super cool. And I trusted my midwife, like she could feel and, you know, with the Doppler and all that kind of stuff to know if anything was up. Now with this one, I've had 2 ultrasounds, and that was mostly to just like check in and make sure everything was cool at the very beginning. And I'm not upset about it. I don't feel like
I did it with Victor too. My most recent. I've had probably 3 babies where I did no ultrasounds at all. And then my last baby, I was too far removed from reading about it. And I was like, but I want to. And I know I'm doing my own little anecdote thing that I said not to do, but I have 8 kids and I had ultrasounds on some and not on others. And I just can't tell a darn difference. And so I guess that's not the way we make decisions. That is not the way we do that.
Right.
But
right.
That's what I did.
And I think there's kind of like we were talking about, like not adding stress to your pregnancy. I was actually getting very stressed out by not seeing my baby and in the first couple weeks. So it was less stressful to me. It pulled a lot of stress off of me to go get an ultrasound and make sure everything was okay. And I think the stress can do a whole lot more damage in the long run than just going getting an ultrasound or 2 for, 5 minutes at a time.
Right. Exactly. And that's it too. I did such short little ultrasounds and I was with you. I had, for whatever reason, like some anxiety about my last pregnancy. I don't know why, because everything was 100% fine. I think I just had a few like anxieties about it for whatever reason. And I agree with you. I'm like, this ultrasound is not going to be worse than this because I'm going to feel really good if I just, have this confirmation. And so I think it's hard being a mom today because in some ways we have access to information on things that are truly bad, truly harmful. We get to know like information that maybe we didn't have access to years ago. But then sometimes the amount of information, this wasn't even a question so many years ago. People weren't like up at night thinking, oh, should I have gotten that ultrasound? Just so many things we're so worried about today. I think it's hard being a mom.
It is very hard. It's like information overload. The internet makes everything so much more difficult than it needs to be.
Yes. Like this just being such a big question, like this, lots of women have stayed up late worrying about it. And I know I've contributed to it because I know I have talked about not doing ultrasounds on podcasts years ago. Like I definitely, had that stance, and it's not at all that I'm saying they're great. I just kind of feel like it's something probably not to get too worked up about personally.
Yeah, for sure.
Are there any vitamins and supplements you take regularly through pregnancy?
So I'm terrible about taking vitamins. I try to, but I'm really awful about remembering to take vitamins. And especially since we've been out here and we've been homesteading, I really try to let food be the vitamins. I think nutrition really should come first and foremost from your actual food rather than just trying to make up for deficiencies with a bottle of vitamins. Certainly with the standard American diet, which I was eating for a lot of our boys, vitamins were probably a very good idea. And I did keep up on my prenatals a lot, but my stance on that has changed so much. I'm not saying vitamins are bad at all. And I do have vitamins that I have around when I remember to take them. But I really think a lot of our nutrition should come from our actual food that we're eating.
Yeah.
First and foremost.
I completely agree with you. I've I've heard or read some studies about taking vitamins before you're pregnant because it can help, like, especially as women age, the egg to divide and all of this stuff. And so I think there is some evidence to that, but most of us don't even, I don't know, like think about that before we're pregnant because we're not pregnant. We're not thinking about getting pregnant necessarily. So I think when it's actually super important is when a lot of us aren't even concerned with it.
Yeah. Right. And if you do a lot of research, like particularly into like Weston A. Price Foundation and Nourishing Traditions, that is a lot of cultures. They do make sure that you are nutritionally on top of things before you even conceive.
Yeah.
And like, we just don't live in a culture that is prominent. And like you said, like most of us aren't even thinking about getting pregnant, or if we are thinking, it's been a very brief amount of time, like not years.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely not. Yes, exactly.
No, not the timeline that most other cultures have or had in the past. So yeah, it's just kind of like, well, I mean, if you're eating well to begin with, and then you're eating well through the pregnancy, and if you're getting like blood work and stuff done, you're going to be able to tell like my iron was kind of low with this one, and I had a slight vitamin D deficiency. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to up that raw milk and the eggs to deal with the vitamin D and eat more, beef tallow and stuff like that. And I started eating a bunch of steak to deal with the iron deficiency, and it's been great. So I think a lot of that should be covered by your actual diet.
Who can argue with steak?
I know. I really wanted steak with this pregnancy, and now I know why.
Yes, I always want steak. Okay, I won't keep you too much longer, but I want to talk a bit about, we had a question about meal planning and menu planning. I know you share quite a bit on your channel about this, but what does that look like for you? Are you a meal planner?
I go through ebbs and flows. So a lot of times, yes, I am a meal planner just because it helps me remember to like pull things out of the freezer, or, our schedule is kind of busy right now. My husband does a podcast once a week. The kids and him do karate twice a week. So like things have to be done by certain times. So that helps me to plan just as far as like getting on dinner on the table by like 5:30. I also have seasons where I'm like, forget it. I don't even care. We're just going to eat whatever I feel like eating for the day. And that definitely happens, I think, in like first trimester for me, is I don't plan because nothing sounds good. I don't get morning sick. Yeah. I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for that, but I'm not a person who gets morning sick. But I do have a lot of food aversions, and smells are a thing for me.
I feel like that's the same thing. I don't know. That's what I call morning sick personally. Like, when you can't stand a certain food, to me, that's like queasy, nausea type feeling.
Okay. Yeah. Like I don't vomit, I guess. So that's why I've always said I never get morning sick.
Oh yeah. I don't vomit, but I'm still morning sick.
Okay.
I'm counting it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go with that then. Okay. But I just don't like, there's so many things that like I would plan it, and then by the time I go to make it, I'm just like, I can't eat this tonight and I don't want to smell it. So it just goes out the window. But the rest of the time, for the most part, yes, I do a menu plan. I usually sit down Sunday night and I'll ask Ben and the kids, hey, is there anything in particular you want to eat this week? Or like, I'll think about what's in our freezer. Like we have an influx of pork right now, but not so much chicken. So I need to focus on cooking pork.
Yeah.
And I'll just base meals off of that. And then obviously our schedule and what needs to be easy and what could be like a long, like Sunday dinner kind of thing.
Yeah. Sounds like you guys do a lot of your planning on Sunday, which I think sets your entire week up for expectations being met, knowing what you need to do, where you need to be, what you're eating. Do you guys have family around, or is Sunday like, I don't know, for me on Sunday, a lot of times we're going to visit family, but you're from, you're across the country. So is your family still over in California?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Well, I cannot wait to hear everything. Did you find out if this baby is a boy or a girl?
No, we have not found out. Our last one was a surprise, and it was the most precious thing ever. So we decided to wait again.
Okay. Oh, man. So yeah, after 4 boys, you had a girl, and then we'll see what this is. So I cannot wait to hear about it.
Yes.
Follow along with all of that. Tell the listeners where they can best find you and follow along with your continued journey as it unfolds. I know you're adding on to your house and you're building out this from scratch homestead, basically, right?
Yeah. We are adding on to our house because, more kids means more space. So we're adding a room and extending the laundry and pantry kind of thing. But yeah, so you can find us. The best place to find us is on YouTube. at the Holler Homestead. We don't have a Facebook anymore, and I don't keep up with social media much while I'm pregnant, just for my mental sanity. So the best place to find us is just on YouTube.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Meg.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, and I will see you in the next one.